Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Paul Brown Show. This evening, my guest is Miss Adelai Brown. How you doing, Miss Brown?
Doing great, doing great.
Hey, thank you for coming on the Paul Brown Show. With the Paul Brown Show, what we do is we educate and inform the community on services that people provide. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I am Adelai Brown, and I am the owner and founder of Addie BB LLC. And Addie BB LLC is a professional and personal development company where we create lasting solutions to help individuals overcome internal and external conflict.
Okay.
And simply put, we pretty much help people get their hearts right so that they can live their lives on purpose and live emotionally stable and productive and resilient lives.
So how long have you had this business?
Well, we have been in business since October of 2015. So we're getting ready to celebrate 4 years of business. And that's when the business itself was incorporated.
Okay.
But I have been on this journey of doing heart work and being a heart coach and heart talk for years now. I started with inspirational text messages back in 2006. And that morphed into me doing Heart Talk, which is a weekly women's empowerment session where I help strong women confront matters of the heart so that they can live authentically on purpose. And started doing that in September 1st of 2014. So we're getting ready to celebrate 5 years of that. And that kind of opened the door for authoring the books and doing the programs and things like that.
So what made you decide to want to deal with the topic of the heart?
That's a great question. I decided to deal with the topic of the heart because my own heart was jacked up.
Okay.
The Bible tells us that out of the heart flows the issues of life. And for me, my life was not where I needed it to be. So I had grown up in church and went on my own, I guess, prodigal route, as you would say. And when Christ, I had an experience where Christ really exposed himself to me in I guess spirit form, but I can't really describe it by words, but I've heard many people say they can't describe those experiences by words. Long story short, I started to pursue a life for Christ, but I didn't realize that I was pursuing religion and not relationship. So after pursuing, checking off boxes and trying to do things the right way for about 5 or 6 years, I just pretty much was worn out. I was worn out with trying to do everything right and always feeling like I was coming up short. I was tired of being depressed. I was tired of being having low self-esteem. I was tired of worrying about things. And I told God, if I'm reading your word and I am doing all of these encouraging things, because I was doing the text messages and things, why do I feel like this? And that's when God started to show me it was my heart. And he started to work on my heart and and when I say that, I mean he started to expose me to things in my life, things about me that I could change, like the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity, like things that I had to accept that I couldn't change, but the courage and the wisdom to change the things I couldn't, knowing the difference. So that it really, to sum it up, was birthed out of my own pain. And out of that pain, God brought forth purpose.
Ali, I mean, you seem so into giving people advice on that topic, and what inspires you to really care about other people's feelings?
It's a great question. To be honest, a lot of it is inspired because it's a desire that I have as well. I grew up like many, especially in the South, but I grew up in church, so you heard certain things, certain scriptures you hear, not just in church. And one you do hear is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So for me, the inspiration to keep going, I guess I would take from that question, how do I keep doing it, or what is really driving it? Is the desire to make others feel how I want to be treated. I would want someone to, if I'm acting out, let's just say we just met and we're having a great time. The next time you see me or the next time I see you, it's like, Mr. Brown doesn't want to talk to me. Like, he doesn't want to be bothered. But instead of me assuming that you don't want to be bothered, I'm going to just give you grace and say, maybe he didn't see me.
Correct.
Maybe he's having a rough day. Maybe I am having a rough day, so I'm just perceiving everything like that. So it's just a desire. I'm driven by a desire to be treated that same way.
Okay, okay.
If that's selfish or whatever, but it is what it is.
So how does Adelaide get that peace? You know, that's something that we really, a lot of people try to get, but they kind of like afraid of what it, you know, that feeling. How do you?
So when you say, how do I get that peace? Just
That
clarify that a little bit for me.
You know, what are the things that you do that makes you go into that peace mode? You know what I'm saying? Whereas you, you know what I'm saying, you enjoy what you're doing, you love, you know what I'm saying? That peace.
Well, I enjoy, one thing I know, and I have acknowledged that I have the gift of encouragement. I will accept that.
Okay.
And so the peace, how do I get there is I have to practice what I'm preaching. So I have to take time. I have to slow down. I have to not jump to conclusions. I have to give myself time throughout the day, make a schedule for me,
Okay.
and say, hey, when I get up in the morning, instead of checking my email or checking my Facebook, I'm going to get up and go pray and worship for a little while. I'm going to read my Bible. I'm going to do a little exercise. Let me get the kids off, and then let me get to checking my work. Just practical things that I do to maintain my peace and sanity. But a broader answer would be, I've willed my life to a perspective of being vulnerable. And I think about it like, when I let go, I gain more.
Okay.
So like if I release trying to control the environment, trying to have it all together, and just say, let me just do my best right now,
Correct.
whatever that might be, that's peace for me. Does that answer the question?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Now, I know you're married. You have a family. Tell the audience a little bit about your husband and exactly how he inspires you to just live this life that you live.
Okay, I'm laughing because my family is very funny, and I say funny because I enjoy them. I enjoy my husband. I enjoy my children. We are like any other family. We get on each other's nerves. Sometimes I want to run away from them, but then I want to go back home. You know, but my husband, I will say my husband and my oldest child have been, because I have 4 children,
Okay.
and they range from 18 to 7. And my husband has inspired me because I did a show about manipulation not too long ago.
Correct.
And a lot of my journey, a lot of my growth, a lot of this hard work came about from me trying to shine such a light on my husband's imperfections, and God put a mirror right in front of that and reflected it back on me.
Okay.
So I'm thankful for him because he's been patient with me through this journey. I'll say for the last 7 or 8 years, I've probably been about 5 or 6 different people, growing through different stages of my emotions and just my personality and just who I am, and learning more of who I am. So my husband really inspires me because he's calm and laid back. He's not quiet, but he can be quiet in certain situations.
Okay.
If you know my husband, you would never describe him as quiet. But if we're out places, I'll be the one doing most of the talking.
Okay.
You know, he's very compassionate. And that's another thing that I love about him. Like, he really loves the kids.
Correct.
Like, and he takes time with them and me. You know, like, he'll be gentle in areas that sometimes people are rough. So I appreciate that, and I feel like he has been one, if not my biggest supporter on this journey of heart talk and heart coaching, because we've been together as these things have just started to just manifest. We've been together for 15 years, so for the last 12, 13 years with the text messages started in 2006, so that was 13 years ago. So he just kind of watched me blossom, watch me read my Bible more, pray more, and he never Like, he would make jokes about it, but like he wouldn't be like, "Oh, you always going to church," or "You always doing this or that," or like if I'm trying to do business meetings and I'm not cooking dinner,
Correct.
that can cause contention after a while. He'll be patient with me. I said, "Honey, I'm sorry. I know I need to come home and cook dinner. I'm chasing this dream. I'm trying to figure this thing out." And so we kind of work together, and I feel like that really helps because I don't have to worry about, is he going to be there when I come back home,
Right.
or, are the kids taken care of?
So how does that make you feel to know that God has sent this individual, and what's his name?
Kevin.
He sent Kevin into your life as you go through this journey.
Well, it feels good because as I talk about in my book, the third book, Help Save Me from My Broken Heart, Your Journey to Living and Loving Again, I talk about how it was so hard for me to appreciate that. It was hard for me to appreciate that because of the dynamic that I've had with men, more specifically my father, and him not being in my life growing up. I didn't realize how much I was trying to manipulate circumstances in my life to prevent myself from being hurt in relationships or being hurt by another man.
Okay.
Right? So for me, a lot of this hard work, a lot of this journey has been learning to really appreciate that and seeing it for what it is and not through the limited perspective that I had as this broken little girl, not growing up with her dad and trying to figure out why and just coming up with reasons that were mostly things that I did wrong,
Okay.
that were not correct, but that impacted every relationship I had because I had those guys they were kind of in the shadow of my father. Or you're going to disappoint me like he did. You're going to not show up like he did.
Okay.
So
you said that father wasn't there. How did you handle growing up? Because the little boys, they get attached to their mothers. Little girls get attached to their father. So how did that void that your father not being there affect you?
As you were asking that question, it put me in the mind of being like a ship without an anchor.
Okay.
That's how I felt. I've never
That's
used that as an example, analogy, I guess. For I don't know. I'm not the best English person, but you get what I'm saying. That's how I felt.
Okay.
Like literally, as you were asking that, and it's yes, I feel it right here. I felt like a ship without an anchor, so I felt like I was just floating.
Okay.
I wanted somebody to just kind of pull me in, and I had people to do that, but it just wasn't who I wanted to do it.
Correct.
And so not having my father there, I just felt like, well, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't he want me to be here? Why do other people not mind being around me, but my father is like almost non-existent? So I made up stories in my mind that I believed, and some of them I'm still realizing that I'm still operating by subconsciously by those stories.
Correct.
But just being open and honest and saying it hurt not having him. My identity was really questioned, and when I say identity, just like, who am I? And I'll give you a quick example. My father and I now have a good relationship.
Okay.
We see each other, and I went to go visit him last year around my birthday, and I just was asking him questions about him because I didn't know.
Correct.
I didn't grow up with him. I didn't grow up hearing those stories around the dinner table and things like that. So I asked him, I said, well, what did you do? Because I know my mom was a jock. My mom played sports. My mom was very active. I knew I got a lot of that from her, but I didn't know if my dad played sports or anything. And he said, no, I wasn't an athlete. I was a band guy. And he went to South Carolina State, Bulldogs. So he was a band is like being a football player at a HBCU. Correct. That's a big deal. So he said, and my thing was the saxophone. And my mouth dropped because ever since I was a little girl, I loved the saxophone. And I wrote on my bucket list, before I die, I'm going to learn how to play the saxophone. That was the only thing I liked about The Simpsons, when Lisa used to play the saxophone on the cartoon. Yeah. And just to find out that and that was in me. Me liking the saxophone was in me. It wasn't nurture because I wasn't around him. That he passed on looks, but he also passed on certain
Correct.
affinities, and I would have never known. That's where I go back to. But if I hadn't been able to anchor into him at some point, I would have never known that. I mean, I would have been all right, but it's just acknowledging that we need that, and that's a part of that hard work. Just acknowledging that it felt really good to know, and to be able to piece. It's almost like watching people get the ancestry DNA results. It's kind of like, wow, didn't know that about myself.
So when you finally made amends with your father, describe that moment, and how did he accept that fact of his daughter?
Well, I will say that, well, I'm going to back up a little bit, and I highlight this story in my book.
Okay.
And now that I think about it, I don't know if I did a good job of highlighting when we made up. And I'll have to get that right now that I'm thinking about this. But my father and I, when we did get in touch, I was in high school, and he and I, the relationship was very tense because I can say at 16 years old, I came in with a lot of expectations because you haven't been here. And it's like, daddy, 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 daddy. Like, I was looking for so much. And he just wasn't in a space where, neither one of us were in a space to really receive that, to make that happen. So when I got pregnant, I was 17 years old, and he and I had a bad fallout argument, and from that I didn't talk to him for 7 years. So from 17 to 24, and through that time I had convinced myself that I did not need my daddy. I was fine. I had made it this far without him. I can make it even further without him.
Correct.
I had barricaded my heart when it came to my father.
Okay.
Right? So a friend of mine got a people search. She did a people search trial for a month. And she said, well, I have this login information and it's unlimited searches for the month, so who do we want to find?
Correct.
The first person that came up for me was my dad, because for those 7 years I had not been in touch with him at all. I didn't talk to him on the phone, no communication. And I felt like because I was grown, we were never going to have communication. And I really thought that's what I wanted, until she gave me that opportunity. And this is why I always tell people, we'll say one thing with our heads, but our hearts feel something else. Because this person, I swore off and I didn't want him and I didn't want anything to do with him. But the minute I had an opportunity to find anybody on the planet, that was the first name that came to mind. Let me find my dad. And I got his number. I got his address and his number, and I called him. And I was like, hey, Dad, just like, because something in me wanted that connection.
Correct.
Right? And I was willingly, even though he was harder for me to deal with, but I was willingly cutting off something I so needed. Not just desired, but I needed that more than I want to acknowledge. So I called him, and it was kind of awkward, but he was happy to hear from me. And I had an older sister that I never met. And so the 7 years that he and I hadn't spoken, that's when she found out about me and started asking him questions about her little sister, because now she's grown up her whole life feeling like she was the only child.
Correct.
But she wasn't, because we're 14 years apart. So after 14, she was no longer the only child. But at this point, she's like 40, 30, 38, 39. So long story short, we connected, and my sister has really kind of stepped in and been a good jail for my father and I. But we're doing really good now, really good.
So is this discussed in your books?
Most of that story is in my book.
And how do we get a copy of your book?
Great question. You guys can get a copy of the book at Amazon.com. The first book that I published is Anchored, Be Blessed Daily, Volume 1. And you can get that on Amazon. If you type in Anchored with an exclamation point and my name, Adelai Brown, it'll pop up. And same thing with Help Save Me from My Broken Heart, Your Journey to Living and Loving Again. You can get that on Amazon as well. And you can type in my name, Adelai Brown, or Help Save Me. It should pop up. Sometimes if you type in Help Save Me, it's not as high at the top. We're working on getting there. But if you type in Help Save Me with Adelai, Adelai, you get to it.
For your TV show, how would us as viewing audience be able to get in watch some of your shows?
Okay, awesome. Well, for my TV show, I'm recording with 2exposeyou.com every week. So you can go to 2exposeyou.com and find my show along with others being aired, streamed live. And that's 2exposu.com. You can also find me, some of my previously aired shows on my YouTube channel or on my Facebook page, and both of those are at the THE Heart Connections.
Okay.
The Heart Connections. And you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and if you type that in, it'll pop up on some of the Google searches as well.
Okay, we're running short on time. If you had one advice you would give our viewing audience, what would it be?
Love yourself. Love yourself unapologetically, and I want you to know that it takes courage to do that, and do it courageously.
Ms. Adelai Brown, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I look forward to you coming back. This educating and informing the community on not only your books, but your TV show and all the other things that you do for our community.
Well, I thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. So whenever you want to have me back, I'll come back.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching the show, and you be encouraged.